let's move on to part 2 of today's math lesson. For part 2, we're going to be focusing on adding and subtracting mixed numbers. So now we're moving on from adding and subtracting fractions to now working with mixed numbers. I'm going to model one for you, and then you're going to do one with me. The first one I'm going to model is 2 1/2 plus 4 1/2. Notice my whole numbers are written larger than my fractions because these represent whole numbers which are bigger than fractions. So I have 2 1/2 plus 4 1/2. For this problem, I simply need to add my whole numbers. So 2 plus 4 equals 6. Then add my fractions. 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 2 halves, or 1 whole. Then I can put my two answers together. My answer of 6 plus my answer of 1 equals 7. So 2 1/2 plus 4 1/2 equals 7. Okay, I'm going to erase my board, and now we're going to do one together where we are adding mixed numbers. So get your paper and pencil ready. All right, for this one, let's start with 1 4/6. So write 1 4/6 on your paper, plus 3 3/6 equals, use my model from the first step and see if you can solve this one on your own. Pause your video to do your work, then turn it back on to check your answer. All right, let me show you how I would have solved this problem and see if you did it the same way. First, I would start by adding my whole numbers. So 1 plus 3 equals 4. Then I would add my fractions. 4/6 plus 3/6 equals 7/6. And we have an improper fraction there, so we need to change it to a mixed number. So we have to ask ourselves, how many times can 6 go into 7? 6 can go into 7 one time with 1 left over, and your denominator stays 6. Then I can take my first answer and add it to my second answer. So 4 plus 1 1/6 equals 5 1/6. So for your answer, you should have written 5 1/6 when you added 1 4/6 plus 3 3/6. If you had that one right, good job, especially if you were able to change this improper fraction to a mixed number, because that can be kind of hard. All right, I'm going to erase my board now, and I'm going to model a subtraction problem. You can solve this one with me, or simply watch and then solve the second one with me. For subtracting mixed numbers, I'm going to start with 8 4/6 minus 3 2/6. I want to look at my problem and make sure that I can simply subtract. Can I subtract 8 minus 3? Yes, because 8 is larger than 3. Can I subtract 4 minus 2? Yes, because 4 is larger than 2. So I would then subtract my whole numbers, then subtract my fractions. 4/6 minus 2/6 equals 2/6, like that. You can also reduce this one to lowest terms. If you left it as 2/6, that would be okay though. Then I would take these two answers and put them together. 5 plus my 2/6 equals 5 2/6 for my answer. Now, if you reduced it to lowest terms, you could have said the answer was 5, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I would accept either of those answers. But 5 1/3 is the answer in lowest terms. Okay, I'm going to erase my board and we're going to do this one together. So everybody needs to be writing this one. If you chose just to watch the first one, that's okay. You need to write this one now on your paper. Let's start with 6 3/8 minus 2 5/8. Now, before you solve this problem, let's think about it. Can you have 6 minus 2? Yeah, that's not a big deal. But can you have 3 minus 5? You can't have 3 and take away 5. So we need to fix this mixed number so that it is larger with a larger numerator. Does anybody remember how to do that? Think about how we've done that in the past. What we would do is borrow from this whole number and add it over here to the fraction. So I'm just going to draw 2 little lines here to show how I could break this down. 6 could be the same as taking away 1 and leaving it 5, and then representing that 1 as a fraction, 8/8, because we want all of our denominators to have 8 in them. 6 is the same as 5 8/8 if you add them together. What we're going to do is take that 8/8 that we borrowed from the 6th and add it up here to this fraction so that our fraction will be larger. So now, for 6 8/8, we are going to say it is equivalent to 5, and then add these two together. So 8/8 plus 3/8 is 11/8. So 6 3/8 is equivalent to 5 11/8. I want you to see if you can finish solving this problem and then turn your video back on to check to see if you got the right answer. All right, for this problem, after converting 6 3/8 to 5 11/8, so our first denominator would be larger than our second, I would then bring down my 2 5/8 and do my subtracting. 5 minus 2 is what I would do first, equals 3, then subtract my fractions, 11/8 minus 5/8 equals 6/8. And then I can put those two together. My 3 and my 6/8. So 3 and 6/8 for my answer. Now 6/8 could be reduced to lowest terms. You have to think, what is a factor of both 6 and 8? Or what is a number you can divide both 6 and 8 by? And the number's 2. Because 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So 3 and 6/8 is your answer, but in lowest terms it would be 3 3/4. If you had that one as your answer, that one's pretty good. This whole changing 6 3/8 to 5 8/8 can be kind of tricky. What you're going to do now is underneath this video in your Google form, you're going to have a couple of adding and subtracting mixed number problems that you need to solve. When you're done with those, you'll come back and you will watch part 3 of today's lesson.